The ion storm came out of nowhere, battering Jackson Reed's mining vessel like an angry god. Red warning lights flashed across his cockpit as the ship's systems began failing one by one. Jackson's calloused hands flew across the controls, his decade of deep space mining experience counting for little against nature's fury. "Come on, hold together," he muttered, watching the hull integrity dropping at an alarming rate. The nearest Federation outpost was light years away, and his distress beacon would be useless in this electromagnetic chaos. As emergency klaxons blared, Jackson spotted a shimmer of atmosphere through the storm, a planet, uncharted and beautiful, its surface gleaming with what appeared to be crystalline formations. With no other options, Jackson aimed his failing ship toward the mysterious world. The entry was rough, his ship screaming in protest as it plunged through the lavender atmosphere. The last thing he saw before impact was a city of impossible crystal spires reaching toward the sky. Jackson awoke to the sound of singing, or at least, something that resembled singing. The melody was otherworldly, comprised of harmonics he'd never heard before. Opening his eyes, he found himself lying on a bed of luminescent moss, surrounded by tall, ethereal beings. Their skin shifted colors like the aurora borealis, and their eyes held an inner light that spoke of ancient wisdom. "The star-touched one awakens," spoke one of them, her voice carrying musical undertones that made Jackson's spine tingle. She stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful. "I am Nyara, first daughter of the Luminara. You have arrived at an auspicious time." Jackson tried to sit up, his head spinning. "I'm sorry about the crash landing. My ship dash." "Your vessel's remains have been gathered," another of the beings interrupted, her skin pulsing with deeper blues and purples. "I am Celine, keeper of technologies. The damage is extensive." Before Jackson could respond, a third figure approached, her presence commanding attention. Unlike the others, her skin held steady in shades of gold and amber. "I am Vena, High Priestess of the Crystal Spires. Your arrival was prophesied, though we did not expect one so." She paused, her luminescent eyes scanning him with obvious interest, rugged. Jackson became acutely aware of his mining uniform's worn state and the 3 days' worth of stubble on his face. "Look, I appreciate the hospitality, but I really need to contact the Mining Federation dash. The stars are not aligned for such communications," Vena declared, her tone brooking no argument. "You have arrived at the time of the luminescent choosing. The old ways must be honored." "The, what?" Jackson asked, but his question was drowned out by a sudden surge of that strange, harmonic singing. Dozens more Luminara entered the chamber, their skin colors shifting in synchronized patterns that made the air itself seem to shimmer. "The trials begin at moonrise," Nyara explained, offering him a crystal goblet filled with iridescent liquid. "Drink. You will need your strength." Jackson took the goblet hesitantly. "Trials? I don't understand. I'm just a mining engineer who crashed from the stars on the eve of choosing," Celine interrupted, her skin rippling with excitement. "The prophecy speaks of such an arrival. One who would bring new light to our people. You honor our traditions by participating," Vena added, though her tone suggested this wasn't a request. Looking between the 3 stunning alien women, each watching him with varying degrees of interest and anticipation, Jackson had a sinking feeling that his unplanned landing had just become far more complicated than a simple crash. He raised the goblet to his lips, the liquid within tasting like starlight and honey. "What exactly am I participating in?" he asked, though part of him already suspected the answer wouldn't be simple. Nyara's skin shifted to a deep rose color as she smiled. "Why, the selection of the next consort of the Crystal Spires, of course. The one who will help lead our people into a new age, and ensure our species' survival." Jackson nearly choked on his drink. As he struggled to process this information, a dark figure appeared in the chamber's entrance. Unlike the others, this Luminara's skin was almost black, with pinpricks of light like distant stars. "I am Thresh, current consort," the figure announced, his voice like grinding crystal. And I challenge the star-touched one's right to participate in the choosing. The atmosphere in the chamber shifted instantly from ceremonial to tense. Jackson looked between his three hosts, noting their suddenly rigid postures. The old ways allow for such challenge, Venna acknowledged reluctantly. Then let us begin now, Thresh demanded, his skin darkening further. Unless the human wishes to forfeit? Jackson stood, surprising himself with his steadiness despite his recent crash. A lifetime of facing down space storms and asteroid fields had taught him when to stand his ground. I didn't ask to be part of your choosing, but I don't back down from challenges either. Nyara's skin flickered with approval, while Celine's patterns suggested worry. Venna merely watched, her golden hue unchanging. Then prepare yourself, Star-touched one, Thresh declared. The first trial begins now. May the brightest light prevail. As the chamber erupted into harmonic chanting, Jackson couldn't help but wonder how a simple mining run had led him to what appeared to be an alien courtship ritual. But looking at Nyara's encouraging smile, Celine's concerned glow, and Venna's enigmatic expression, he realized that sometimes the richest discoveries came from the most unexpected excavations. The question was, what exactly had he dug himself into? The first trial took place in a vast crystal amphitheater beneath 3 moons of varying sizes and colors. Jackson stood at its center, still wearing his mining uniform, while hundreds of Luminara watched from the crystalline seats that spiraled upward like a frozen tornado. The trial of resonance begins, Venna announced, her golden form hovering above the arena floor. Each contestant must harmonize with the crystal heart. The one whose song rings truest shall advance. Thresh stepped forward first, his dark form seeming to absorb the moonlight. He raised his arms, and a haunting melody emerged from his throat. The crystal formations around the amphitheater began to vibrate, creating harmonics that made Jackson's teeth ache. The audience swayed, their skin colors shifting in response to the music. Your turn, Star-touched one, Thresh said, stepping back with obvious confidence. Though I doubt mining machinery has taught you much about harmony. Jackson looked to Nyara, who had insisted on being his guide through the trials. Her luminescent eyes met his, and she nodded encouragingly. Listen to the crystals, she whispered. They speak to all who would hear. Taking a deep breath, Jackson closed his eyes. Years of working with mining equipment had taught him to recognize the subtle vibrations of different minerals, the way each or hummed differently under his equipment. He listened now, really listened, to the crystal formations around him. There was a pattern to their vibration, a song hidden within their structure. Without fully understanding why, Jackson began to hum, matching his voice to the crystal's natural frequency. The sound built slowly, resonating with the formations until the entire amphitheater was singing with him. The Luminara audience gasped as the crystals began to glow, their light pulsing in time with Jackson's song. Even Thresh's dark form flickered with surprise. Extraordinary, Celine murmured from her position among the judges. He speaks the language of the stones themselves. The crystal song reached a crescendo, and Jackson opened his eyes to find the entire arena bathed in rainbow light. The 3 moons above seemed to shine brighter, their combined radiance creating patterns across the crystal surfaces. The first trial is concluded, Venna declared. The Star-touched one advances. Thresh's form darkened further with anger. This proves nothing. The second trial will show his true worth, or lack thereof. The second trial proved even more challenging. In a chamber deep within the crystal spires, Jackson and Thresh faced a puzzle of light and shadow. Crystal prisms hung in the air, waiting to be arranged to create specific patterns on the chamber walls. The trial of wisdom requires more than brute force or lucky resonance, Thresh commented, already moving his prisms with practiced ease. It requires understanding of our ways, our history. Jackson studied the patterns forming on Thresh's wall, they told stories, he realized, of the Luminara's past. But something felt wrong about them, like a mathematical equation that didn't quite balance. The patterns, Celine whispered, breaking protocol to aid him. They're not just decorative. They're dash. Star maps, Jackson finished, his engineer's mind making the connection. They're navigation charts. He began moving his own prisms, creating not just the historical patterns but showing how they connected to the stars above. His display revealed ancient migration routes, stellar phenomena, and cosmic events that had shaped the Luminara's journey. Impossible, Thresh hissed. How could you know dash? Because I've seen these patterns in space, Jackson explained, adding final adjustments to his crystal array. They're still out there, written in the stars themselves. Vena's golden form studied both displays carefully. The star-touched one's wisdom comes from direct experience, not merely learned lore. He advances. The final trial, however, was something Jackson hadn't expected. In a garden of crystal flowers that chimed softly in the breeze, he and Thresh faced each other across a small pool of liquid light. The trial of truth, Nyara explained, her skin shifting with nervous patterns. Here, all intentions are revealed. Step into the pool, Vena instructed. Let your true self shine forth. Thresh entered first, his dark form causing the liquid light to swirl with shadows. Images formed in the pool, his achievements, his devotion to tradition, but also his fear of change and his rigid grip on power. When Jackson stepped in, the pool erupted with scenes from his life, dangerous mining operations where he'd risked himself to save others, moments of wonder at discovering new mineral formations, his constant push to explore further, learn more, understand deeper. But it also showed something else, his immediate acceptance of the Luminara, his willingness to embrace their ways while offering his own perspective, and most surprisingly, his growing feelings for. The pool suddenly brightened, becoming too brilliant to look at directly. When the light faded, Thresh had stepped out, his form dimmer than before. 3 trials completed, Vena announced. The star-touched one has proven himself worthy in resonance, wisdom, and truth. This isn't over, Thresh declared, but his voice lacked its former authority. The choosing requires dash. The choosing is complete, Celine interrupted, her technological readings pulsing with confirmation. The crystals themselves have spoken. Nyara stepped forward, her skin glowing with joy as she took Jackson's hand. Welcome, consort of the crystal spires. Wait, Jackson said, looking between the 3 women who had guided him through the trials. I still don't understand what exactly a consort does here. Vena's golden form seemed to smile. You will lead alongside us, help us navigate the changes coming to our people, and... She paused meaningfully, ensure our species' future through union with our strongest bloodlines. Union? Jackson asked, though he had a pretty good idea what she meant. Did you think it was called the choosing merely for ceremony? Celine asked, her skin rippling with amusement. You've been chosen by more than just the crystals. As understanding dawned, Jackson looked at the 3 remarkable beings before him, Nyara's compassionate glow, Celine's brilliant mind, and Vena's wise strength. Maybe that mining accident hadn't been an accident at all. But before he could respond, a distant alarm echoed through the crystal spires. Celine's form pulsed with worry as she consulted her readings. Something's wrong, she announced. The outer crystals are detecting multiple approaching vessels. And they're not responding to our identification requests. Thresh's dark form seemed to smile in the shadows. Ah, he said softly. Right on schedule. The real challenge, it seemed, was just beginning. The crystal spire's warning system created haunting harmonies as the unknown vessels approached. Jackson followed Celine to a control chamber where crystalline displays showed multiple ships entering the atmosphere, their designs aggressive and unfamiliar. Raiders, Nyara explained, her skin pulsing with concern. They come for our crystals, our technology, and sometimes our people. And you chose now to mention this? Jackson asked, watching as Thresh slipped away during the confusion. The raiders have never breached our defenses before, Vena responded, her golden form dimming slightly. Our crystal shields have always protected us. Celine's hands danced across crystal control panels. The shields aren't responding correctly. The harmonics are wrong. Her eyes widened with sudden understanding. They've been sabotaged. Jackson studied the technical readouts, his engineering background kicking in. These patterns, they're similar to what Thresh showed during the trials. He wasn't just demonstrating knowledge of your history. He was showing us his plan, Nyara finished, her skin darkening with anger. Every failed attempt at the trials weakened another layer of our defenses. The first explosion rocked the crystal spires, sending rainbow-hued shards raining down around them. Jackson grabbed Nyara, pulling her away from a falling crystal column. We need to evacuate the lower levels. The people will gather in the sacred caves, Vena declared, already sending out harmonic signals that echoed through the spires. But without the shields. We can restore them, Jackson interrupted, his mind racing through calculations. Celine, the resonance patterns we used during my first trial, could we amplify them through the main crystal matrix? Celine's form brightened with realization. Yes. But we'd need to access the heart chamber. With the raiders landing. I'll go with Jackson, Nyara volunteered immediately. I know passages through the spires that even Thresh doesn't know about. I'll coordinate the evacuation, Vena decided. Celine, gather what defenders you can. Buy them time. As they split up, Jackson followed Nyara through crystalline corridors that seemed to shift and change around them. How long has Thresh been planning this? He asked as they ran. He's been consort for 3 cycles, Nyara explained, leading him down a hidden stairwell. We knew he was resistant to change, but this. Her skin rippled with complex emotions. Our people are dying, Jackson. Each generation, fewer children are born. We needed new bloodlines, new energy. That's what the choosing was really about. They reached a massive chamber where a colossal crystal pulsed with inner light. But they weren't alone. Thresh stood before the crystal heart, surrounded by armed figures in dark armor. Ah, the star-touched one, Thresh sneered. Come to witness the end of the old ways. The raiders promised him power, a familiar voice said. Jackson turned to see Celine step from the shadows, her form darker than he'd ever seen it. A guaranteed future for those who cooperate. Celine. Nyara's voice cracked with betrayal. You too. Progress requires sacrifice, Celine replied, though her form flickered with what might have been regret. The raiders have technology beyond our understanding. They can solve our fertility crisis, restore our people's strength. By making us slaves, Nyara spat. Jackson studied the crystal heart, noting how its rhythms had changed. You're wrong about one thing, he said to Thresh. I didn't just come to witness. Before anyone could react, Jackson pressed his hand against the crystal surface and began to sing. The harmony he discovered during the trials burst forth, but this time he poured everything into it, his experiences in the depths of space, the mathematical precision of his engineering knowledge, and most importantly, his growing connection to this crystal world and its people. The heart chamber erupted with light. The crystal responded to his song, its resonance building to impossible levels. The raiders clutched their heads in pain as the harmonics intensified. Stop him. Thresh commanded, but Nyara was already moving. Her combat skills proved surprisingly lethal as she engaged the raiders, her form blurring with speed. Celine stood frozen, her loyalties visibly warring within her. Finally, with a cry of frustration, she turned on Thresh. The crystals choose him. Can't you feel it? This is what we needed, not submission to raiders, but true renewal. The crystal heart's song reached a crescendo. Throughout the spires, defensive crystals reactivated, their combined power creating a shield that the raider ships couldn't penetrate. More than that, the resonance seemed to revitalize every crystal it touched, restoring ancient systems that had lain dormant for generations. When it was over, Thresh and the raiders lay unconscious, overcome by the crystal harmonics. Celine stood trembling, her form shifting between light and shadow. "I only wanted to save our people," she whispered. Nyara approached her former friend cautiously. "We all want that. But not through betrayal." Jackson kept his hand on the crystal heart, feeling its power hum through him. "Your people don't need Raiders' technology," he said softly. "Everything you need is already here. It just needed a new perspective to unlock it." Vena appeared in the chamber entrance, her golden form radiant. "The Raiders retreat," she announced. "And the crystals, they're singing songs I haven't heard since my grandmother's time." Looking at the three women, Nyara's fierce loyalty, Celine's brilliant but misguided intentions, and Vena's ancient wisdom, Jackson realized that his role as consort would be far more complex than he'd imagined. This wasn't just about ensuring the Luminara's future through biological means, it was about bridging worlds, combining the best of both human and Luminara knowledge to forge something new. But as guards arrived to take Thresh away, and Celine began the long process of making amends, a new alarm sounded, different from the Raiders' warning. "The crystal heart," Vena breathed. "It's showing us something. A message hidden in its resonance patterns for millennia." The chamber filled with holographic star maps, revealing a truth that would change everything they thought they knew about the Luminara's origins. The holographic star maps filled the heart chamber, showing constellations and celestial patterns that made Jackson's breath catch. After years of deep space mining, he recognized these formations, but they were impossibly old. "These are navigation charts," he explained, watching as the patterns shifted and evolved. "But they're showing stellar positions from thousands of years ago." "The Great Migration," Vena whispered, her golden form pulsing with excitement. "When our ancestors first came to this world." "But there's more." The crystal heart's projections changed, revealing a spacecraft design that made Celine gasp. That's a human vessel." "But how?" "Not exactly human," Jackson corrected, studying the familiar yet alien architecture. "But definitely from Earth's solar system. Your ancestors, they were there before, weren't they? Before humanity reached the stars. Our oldest songs speak of a time when we walked among the young races," Nyara confirmed, her skin shimmering with ancestral memories. "Guiding, watching, waiting. Until something drove you away," Jackson finished, seeing the next sequence of images. A massive solar event, a desperate evacuation, and a long journey through space that ended at this crystal world. "The Great Burning," Vena nodded. "But these records show something we'd forgotten. We didn't just leave, we left something behind. Seeds planted in humanity's very essence." Celine's form brightened with sudden understanding. "That's why the Raiders' promises were false. We don't need their technology to solve our fertility crisis. We need the other half of your genetic heritage," Jackson said softly. "Human DNA. That's why the choosing was so important. Why my arrival was prophesied." The chamber hummed with energy as more secrets unveiled themselves. The Luminara hadn't just influenced early human development, they'd encoded parts of their own genetic structure into humanity's ancestors, creating a failsafe that would activate when the two species reunited. But Thresh knew, Nyara realized, her skin darkening with anger. That's why he allied with the Raiders. If humans and Luminara reconnected naturally, his power would be meaningless, Vena finished. The artificial barriers between our peoples would dissolve. A new alarm sounded, different from the others. Celine rushed to the control crystals, her redemption taking form in renewed dedication to her people. "The Raiders aren't retreating, they're regrouping. And they've called for reinforcements." "How many ships?" Jackson asked, already calculating possibilities. "Too many," Celine admitted. "Even with the shields restored." "Then we don't fight them directly," Jackson decided, his engineer's mind racing. "The crystal heart doesn't just power your defenses, does it? It's a beacon. Vena's golden form brightened with realization. A beacon that's been dormant for millennia. Until now. Until a human reconnected it to its original purpose, Nyara added, moving closer to Jackson. The attraction between them had grown stronger with each revelation, each shared danger. Can we send a signal? Jackson asked Celine. Something strong enough to reach Earth's mining outposts. Celine's hands danced across crystal controls. With the heart's power fully restored, yes. But the raiders will detect it. They'll throw everything they have at us before help can arrive. Then we give them something else to worry about, Jackson said, remembering his crash landing. The ion storm that brought me here, it wasn't natural, was it? The crystal heart creates them as a defense mechanism, Vena confirmed. But generating one now, with our power already focused on the shields, would require perfect harmony, Nyara finished. Between all of us. The chamber filled with tension as they realized what this meant. The joining of consort and leaders wasn't just a political or biological necessity, it was a key to unlocking their civilization's full potential. I'll coordinate the ground defenses, Celine offered, her earlier betrayal driving her to prove herself anew. The people will need guidance, Vena added. I'll lead them in the ancient songs of shielding. I'll stay with Jackson, Nyara declared, her skin glowing with determination in something deeper. Our resonance is strongest together. As the others moved to their positions, Jackson and Nyara approached the crystal heart. Their hands met on its surface, and the chamber filled with harmonics that made the very air shimmer. Are you ready? Nyara asked, her form beginning to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Once we begin this, everything changes. For both our peoples. Jackson looked at this extraordinary being who had become so much more than just his guide to an alien world. In her, he saw the bridge between two civilizations, the healing of ancient wounds, and a future filled with possibilities that neither humanity nor the Luminara had imagined. I crashed on this world by accident, he said, feeling the crystal heart's power building between them. But staying? That's a choice I make freely. Their resonance built to impossible levels as the raider fleet appeared in the purple sky above. But this time, the crystal spires were ready. And in the heart chamber, human and Luminara joined in a harmony that would reshape the galaxy. The storm was about to break. The ion storm that erupted above the crystal spires made Jackson's crash landing look like a gentle breeze. Purple lightning arced between crystal formations, while the combined resonance of human and Luminara technology created electromagnetic pulses that disabled the raiders' weapons systems. The distress signal is broadcasting, Celine reported, her form flickering with effort as she maintained the crystal matrices. But the raiders' jamming technology won't matter, Jackson assured her, never breaking his harmonic connection with Nyara and the crystal heart. Mining vessels are designed to detect ion storms. When they see one this massive, appearing out of nowhere, they'll come to investigate, Nyara finished, her form pulsing in perfect rhythm with his heartbeat. Their joined resonance powered the storm, while Vena's songs guided the people in reinforcing the city's shields. The first raider ship tried to push through the storm, its hull crackling with energy. Instead of firing weapons, they broadcast a message that echoed through the crystal chambers. You're making a mistake, a harsh voice declared. The Luminara are dying. Our scientists could save them, perfect them. Why fight the inevitable? Because perfection isn't about control, Jackson responded, letting the crystal heart amplify his words. It's about growth, change, the blending of different strengths. Nyara's resonance merged with his words, adding layers of harmony that carried truth deeper than mere language. Through their connection, Jackson felt the presence of other Luminara couples throughout the spires, their own harmonies adding to the symphony of defense. The raiders' shields are failing, Celine announced, her technology interfacing seamlessly with the ancient crystal systems. They're trying to retreat, but the storm. A new sound cut through the chaos, the distinctive engine signature of Federation mining vessels. Dozens of them, their hulls designed to withstand the worst space could throw at them, pushed through the ion storm's outer edges. "This is mining vessel Helios," a familiar voice crackled through the crystal communications. "Jackson Reed, you've got some explaining to do about that emergency beacon. And about this storm that's lighting up our sensors from 3 systems away." "Captain Rodriguez," Jackson grinned, though maintaining the resonance with Nyara. "Would you believe I found something a lot more valuable than mineral deposits?" "I'm reading multiple hostile ships," Rodriguez responded, "all business. And some very unusual energy signatures from the surface." "The hostiles were just leaving," Jackson said firmly. "Unless they want to explain to the Federation why they were attacking an advanced civilization that predates human spaceflight." The raiders didn't wait for further discussion. Their ships, already damaged by the storm, turned and fled. The few that had been disabled were quickly surrounded by mining vessels, their crews probably already calculating salvage rights. As the storm dissipated, Jackson and Nyara gradually reduced their connection to the crystal heart. But something had changed between them, a permanent bond forged through shared resonance. Looking around the chamber, Jackson saw similar connections forming, Celine working seamlessly with the mining fleet's technical officers, Venna discussing ancient histories with fascinated Federation xenoarchaeologists. "It was never just about saving the Luminara, was it?" he asked Nyara softly. "This was about both our species remembering what we once were. What we could be again." Nyara's skin shimmered with joy and love. The prophecy spoke of reunion, not salvation. "We needed you, yes, but perhaps humanity needed us too. A reminder that there's more to existence than what can be measured or mined." Speaking of mining, Jackson grinned, gesturing to the crystal formations around them. "Wait until the Federation sees how your crystal technology could revolutionize deep space operations. Assuming you're willing to share." "That would be a decision for the consort and his mates to make," Venna declared, returning to the chamber with several impressed-looking Federation officials. "Mates? Plural?" one of the officials asked, raising an eyebrow at Jackson. "Cultural differences," he shrugged, feeling Nyara's amusement through their bond. "Very important for diplomatic relations." Over the next few months, the Crystal Spires became a hub of human Luminara cooperation. Federation ships came and went, establishing trade routes and diplomatic connections. The raiders, facing the combined might of 2 civilizations, quickly decided to seek easier targets. Thresh and his conspirators faced justice, though their punishment focused on rehabilitation rather than revenge. Celine's knowledge, combined with her genuine remorse, proved invaluable in identifying and healing other potential sources of discord between the cultures. As for Jackson, he found that being consort to 3 remarkable Luminara women was just the beginning of his adventures. The Crystal Heart had shown them star maps for a reason. Other lost colonies of Luminara waited among the stars, along with secrets about humanity's own origins. "Ready for another expedition?" Nyara asked one evening, finding him studying the holographic star charts. Their first child, a daughter whose skin shifted between human tones and Luminara crystalline patterns, slept peacefully in a nearby crystal cradle. "With you?" "Always," Jackson replied, feeling the resonance between them hum with shared excitement. "Though maybe this time we can skip the crash landing." "Where's the fun in that?" she teased, her form shimmering with light that matched the stars above the crystal spires. As they planned their next journey, Jackson reflected that some of the universe's greatest treasures couldn't be mined or measured. Sometimes they crashed into your life when you least expected it, changing everything you thought you knew about yourself and your place in the cosmos. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they sang to you with the voice of crystals and starlight, leading you home to a future you never knew you were seeking.